Jack DeJohnette never needed to shout to be heard. His rhythm could whisper and roar all at once, a language of breath, heartbeat, and universe. By the time the jazz world bid farewell to him on October 26, 2025, he had done more than play drums. He had redrawn what music could feel like. As of his passing, his net worth was estimated to be around $6 million, a modest sum compared to the weight of his influence. To him, wealth was not a matter of luxury. It was measured in sound, in moments shared with Miles Davis, Keith Jarrett, Herbie Hancock, and generations who followed. He left behind not just recordings, but a way of listening to the world. Early life. Jack DeJohnette was born on August 9, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois, a city where blues and jazz rolled through the streets like warm smoke. His mother, Eva Jeanette Wood, and father, Jack DeJohnette Sr., were hard-working parents in a city alive with rhythm. When his grandmother Rosalie and Wood adopted him, she gave him not only a home, but a piano, a Wurlitzer spinet that would change his life. Rosalie saw something burning quietly inside her grandson. She enrolled him in piano lessons with Antoinette Rich, who conducted the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, a rare teacher for a black child in the 1940s. Jack practiced scales by day, and by night, listened to his Uncle Roy Wood Sr., a pioneering black radio DJ, spin the sounds of Duke Ellington, Count Basie, and Nat King Cole. In that home, the lines between jazz, blues, and gospel blurred into something magical. By age 4, he was playing piano seriously. But as he grew older, his hands began to itch for rhythm, for something more physical, more explosive. In high school, he sat at the drum kit and felt it, the pulse, the power, the freedom. It was as if his entire childhood on the piano had prepared him to hear melody inside rhythm. Jack's heritage, too, shaped his inner compass. He carried African-American, Seminole, and Crow ancestry, a tapestry of resilience that later inspired his spiritual connection to Native American culture and music. Chicago taught him discipline. His roots gave him soul, education, and early exploration. DeJohnette attended the American Conservatory of Music in Chicago, focusing on classical piano and composition. But the formal curriculum couldn't contain him for long. He was soon spending nights jamming at South Side clubs, playing whatever came, swing, bop, avant-garde experiments. He learned early what few musicians ever understand. Music is not about playing right notes, but honest ones. By his early 20s, he had joined local groups, including the Chicago Experimental Band and the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, AACM, which blurred the line between structured jazz and free improvisation. Those years sculpted his boldness, a fearlessness that would later make him the perfect partner for Miles Davis's genre-bending explorations. Personal life. Behind the stage lights, Jack DeJohnette's world was quieter, grounded, and deeply spiritual. He was married twice. His first wife, Deirdre Davenport, met him in college, but the marriage ended amicably as his touring schedule consumed his life. His second and lifelong partner, Lydia Herman, was a British visual artist he met in London in 1966 after a show at Ronnie Scott's. She was captivated not by his fame, but by his calm, centered presence. They would spend nearly 60 years together. Lydia became not just his wife, but his collaborator, designing album covers, curating his photographs, and building a home studio where music and art coexisted. Together, they raised 2 daughters, Farah and Minya, in Woodstock, New York, the town they made their creative refuge. Those who knew Jack say he lived with quiet spirituality. He spoke of the cosmic rhythm, of channeling sound from beyond the physical. Though raised in a Christian home, his spirituality evolved into something ecumenical, part Native American ritual, part Buddhist mindfulness, part pure music. He was also an avid motorcyclist, owning 2 Yamaha Viragos, a 1981 750 cubic centimeters, and a 1986 700 cubic centimeters. On warm Catskill afternoons, neighbors would see him ride through the winding roads with Lydia holding on behind him. Jazz's elder statesman chasing freedom at 60 miles an hour. At home, he was humble. Music, he once said, is my prayer. Every note is a thank you. Professional career. The New York breakthrough. In 1966, with little more than a few $100s and a heart full of rhythm, Jack DeJohnette left Chicago for New York City, the mecca of modern jazz. Within weeks, he was playing at Minton's Playhouse, the same Harlem club where bebop had been born 2 decades earlier. He backed Jackie McLean, Freddie Hubbard, and Betty Carter, proving himself a drummer with not just chops, but imagination. When Charles Lloyd heard him, he invited DeJohnette to join his quartet, alongside pianist Keith Jarrett. That partnership would echo across half a century. Lloyd's group took DeJohnette around the world. By the time the quartet played the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967, the same stage that hosted Jimi Hendrix and The Who, DeJohnette was not just a drummer. He was a revelation. Miles Davis and the birth of fusion. In 1968, Miles Davis called. The meeting of DeJohnette and Davis was a collision of energies. Miles's restless innovation meeting Jack's fearless curiosity. DeJohnette joined the group during the recording of Bitches Brew, one of the most revolutionary albums in jazz history. He didn't just keep time, he stretched it. His multidirectional drumming, exploding across cymbals, toms, and snares like brushstrokes on a canvas, helped birth the sound of jazz fusion. Miles once told him, "Jack, you don't play the drums, you paint them." In those years, DeJohnette recorded not only Bitches Brew, but also Jack Johnson and Live Evil, establishing himself as a creative engine behind Miles's electric era. He later played with Bill Evans, Stan Getz, and Ornette Coleman, seamlessly adapting to whatever soundscape unfolded. The AACM years and his own voice. The 1970s marked DeJohnette's transformation from sideman to visionary leader. In 1970, he released The DeJohnette Complex, his debut as a bandleader, proving his compositions were as daring as his drumming. A few years later, his partnership with AACM Records, the German label known for its atmospheric jazz sound, began. At AACM, he found creative freedom. His collaborations with Keith Jarrett became legendary. Ruda and Daidia 1973, followed by decades together in the Standards Trio, Jarrett, bassist Gary Peacock, and DeJohnette himself. Their telepathic interplay would redefine the piano trio for modern jazz. He also formed ensembles that bore his signature. Gateway, with Dave Holland and John Abercrombie, New Directions, Special Edition, and later Trio Beyond, with John Schofield and Larry Goldings. Every project was different, yet each shared one trait. DeJohnette's rhythm spoke with intelligence and emotion. Late career, the elder statesman. In his later years, DeJohnette never stopped evolving. In 2016, he joined forces with Ravi Coltrane, son of John, and Matthew Garrison, son of Jimmy Garrison, John Coltrane's bassist, for In Movement. It wasn't nostalgia, it was renewal, a circle closing gracefully. In 2022, at age 80, he won a Grammy Award for Skyline with Ron Carter and Gonzalo Rubalcaba, a serene, luminous album that critics called a masterclass in musical conversation. He had earlier won another Grammy in 2009 for Peacetime, a single hour-long meditative composition that floated between jazz, ambient, and spiritual soundscape, proof that DeJohnette was never bound by genre. In 2012, he was named an NEA Jazz Master, America's highest honor for jazz musicians. Style and legacy, the art of listening. Jack DeJohnette didn't just play the drums. He reshaped the language of percussion. Where most drummers kept time, he made time breathe. His hands flowed like water, not striking, but caressing the kit. He often said the key was to listen, not just to the band, but to the moment. He blurred the line between rhythm and melody, often treating cymbals like piano keys and toms like vocal tones. The result was a sound at once thunderous and intimate, technical and tender. Every great jazz drummer after him, from Brian Blade to Mark Guiliana, carries some echo of DeJohnette's language. Keith Jarrett once said, "Jack plays like the sky, always moving, always open." House tour and car collection. Jack and Lydia's Woodstock home, built in the mid-1970s in the hamlet of Willow, wasn't just a house, it was a retreat. The cedar-walled, 2-story log home sat among 4 acres of whispering trees, complete with a stone fireplace, a meditation deck overlooking the Catskills, and in the basement, a studio that became the heartbeat of his later work. There, surrounded by instruments, photos, and Native American artwork, He composed and recorded. Musicians who visited said it felt like entering a sacred space, incense burning, soft light filtering through, and Jack's laughter echoing from the control room. His vehicles reflected his down-to-earth personality. Rather than flashy cars, he preferred his motorcycles, 2 Yamaha Viragos, lovingly maintained, ready for summer rides. "It's about motion," he told Jazz Times. "The wind teaches you tempo." College career. Though DeJohnette studied formally at the American Conservatory of Music, his real education came on stage. He learned from Eldridge Buzz Freeman in Chicago jam sessions, from listening to Max Roach records, and from trading ideas with peers who would become legends: Roscoe Mitchell, Mule Richard Abrams, and Anthony Braxton. His college career was the city itself: smoky clubs, late-night improvisations, and fearless exploration. It taught him discipline without rigidity, a lesson he carried all his life. Final years and cause of death. In his final decade, DeJohnette slowed his touring schedule, but never his creativity. He continued recording from his home studio and mentoring young musicians through online workshops and private residencies in Woodstock. On October 26, 2025, Jack DeJohnette passed away at Kingston Hospital, New York, at age 83, due to congestive heart failure. His death was peaceful, his wife Lydia and daughters by his side. The jazz world mourned profoundly. Tributes poured in from every continent. Herbie Hancock called him the heartbeat of a generation. The Village Vanguard dimmed its lights for a minute of silence, and AACM Records released a statement calling him a bridge between heaven and earth. Eternal legacy. Jack DeJohnette's story is not one of fame, but of purpose. He spent more than 6 decades proving that rhythm could be poetry, that listening was an act of love, and that jazz, like life, is about improvisation. He transcended the drums. He became the sound of freedom itself. From the back rooms of Chicago to the world's grandest stages, from the electric storms of Miles Davis to the meditative stillness of peacetime, DeJohnette carried one message: music is infinite, and so are we. His house in Woodstock remains, now a quiet shrine to sound and spirit. The wind that rustles through the Catskills seems to play his rhythm still, gentle, bold, eternal.